Hey guys, Rob from Cigar Federation here with you with another Cigar Chat end of the year episode. We've got a bunch of guests today, so we're not going to waste too much time with our opening spiel. Logan's not here, so we're not going to talk about the weather. Um, I've got a bunch of different members of the cigar media here today. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, the good, the bad, and the ugly of 2015, and I think there was a lot of every one of those segments, so we'll just jump right in. Sitting in for Logan as our co-host today here on Cigar Chat, John, our conscious Canadian, flashing his Jets jersey for some reason. Did they win or something?
Yeah. If you follow the football, if you've got a fantasy team going on, I don't know if.
I don't even want to talk about fantasy football.
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about fantasy football either. But if you got fantasy football going on, then you know that there's a huge come from behind victory, which was aided by some poor overtime decisions by the Pats.
Some Fitzmagic?
There was some Fitzmagic.
That's what I hear. His beard's pretty sweet. That guy's got a sweet beard.
You know, he actually trimmed the magic beard before they went on their the win streak.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with whether they win or lost, but people.
Of course it does.
No,
of course it does. Now he's got to trim it every week. Anyways, I said we weren't going to banter about BS, and we already did. Too late. Okay, so I'm going to go down the line. Yeah, it feels like it. You got a beer. I've got a beer going. I'm actually drinking a Zonker Stout from Snake River in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and it is quite tasty. But anyway, let me go down the line because we've got a bunch of people here. I'm just going to introduce you guys in the order that I see you on my screen. So we're going to start with the infamous Coop. Coop, thanks for joining us, man.
Rob, thanks so much for having me back. I know we were talking about this, it seemed like yesterday in New Orleans. I thought last year was awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And we did I think we did a wrap-up show just after IPCPR. That was a lot of fun, too.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us. This Coop from Cigar Coop. We've got David Jones from Leaf Enthusiast hanging out with us. David, thanks for taking the time, man.
Oh, thanks for having me on here, Rob. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'm glad that we could have you on. We didn't have you guys have you on last year, so happy to have you here, and we can chat and get to know you a little bit. And you guys know this face. That's Barry Stein from. So your you work with two guys, right?
TwoGuysCigars.com, yes.
And the web, but your blog is
TheCigarAuthority.com.
CigarAuthority.com.
Which is also a podcast.
Oh, and a podcast. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Oh, you're the competition.
I am.
Oh, I have an eject button here, I think. I'm going to get rid of this.
Very afraid.
No, happy to have you back on the show, Barry. It's always a lot of fun to chat with you. Just remember, keep it clean for the first hour if you can.
I'll try my best.
And we've got Aaron Loomis hanging out with us again as well. Aaron was on with us last year, so it's always fun to have. We have you on all the time now, it feels like.
Yeah, I'm like a pseudo friend of the show, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of tag along whenever I can.
Yeah,
but yeah,
you're that friend that you just kind of hang out with when it's like, oh, nobody else is around.
That's
so
right.
I'll give Aaron a call.
I just fill in a spot whenever there's something empty. I'll sitting on the bench. But lots of talent on this show tonight, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so we're gonna get started. Thanks for joining us. I really do appreciate it. So 2015 kind of, it's a cliche, but it kind of came and went, man. It seemed like cigars were getting released from the beginning of January. They're still coming out, it feels like. I'm just going to kind of jump around. I'm going to start with Coop. What are some of your highlights from 2015?
Of the industry?
Give me some industry highlights and a couple of cigars that really stood out to you.
As far as cigars that stood out, I think regular production-wise, Matilde Oscura is probably the one right now that I'd say is the best regular production cigar I've had this year.
Everybody's talking about that cigar. I haven't smoked it yet. Everybody's talking about it.
I'm not the biggest San Andreas fan. I tend to like San Andreas when they're more on a Dominican blend. It just seems like that's what I gravitate towards. This cigar is a legit cigar, and I was blown away by it right now.
So that's a contender for Cigar of the Year for you, huh?
It was our number 3. It was my number 3.
It's your number 3.
I haven't released number 1 and 2 yet, but that will be coming. But if that's a hint, I said it's the best regular production cigar.
Oh, look at you. Dropping little Easter egg hints.
Yeah.
So we can guess the last two at the end of the show?
You can try.
Guess right now.
Oh, they're gonna tell you anything.
Yeah.
He will neither confirm nor deny. So,
No,
okay, so the Matilde Oscuro, have any of you guys smoked it? Because I haven't smoked it yet.
I have.
And what did you
have
think?
as well.
It was a pretty good cigar. I don't think I'm quite as high on it as Coop is, but I definitely think it's a very good cigar.
Now, I know we had a review of it, John, and maybe you can pull this up while I'm talking. I think Seth posted a review of the Matilde Oscuro fairly recently, if memory serves. But I'm not actually positive. Barry, what did you think of it?
I found it to be a little inconsistent. From size to size, it was just tremendously different. It seemed there was no continuity from one cigar to the next, and it was, for me, it was a little rough around the edges.
So when you say some continuity between Vitolas,
Yeah,
more so
or even
than-
the same size. It seems
Really?
like from box to box, there was just a significant difference where I didn't feel like I was smoking the same cigar.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. I mean, for me, it seems pretty common when a cigar you go from Vitola to Vitola, you're going to get some differences. I mean,
Right,
obviously-
but there's also going to be a common thread. A common
Yeah,
ground.
that's true. Good point. Fair point. Okay. Well, so interesting. Mixed reviews. And John, when you find that review, let us know what.
I don't see it on the website. I see
I
the
could be
Matilda
completely making it
from-
up.
Yeah, Dustin did it in 2014 with the
No.
Renanciere, but I don't see a review from this year.
Huh, interesting. I'm full of it. What else you got, Coop?
Well, as far as cigar-wise goes, there was I thought it was a better year in the second half of the year than the first half of the year. So I kind of thought the year started off slow cigar-wise, but I thought second it picked up pretty well. But there was one cigar from the first half of the year, and I've heard everyone talk about this year of the Connecticut, which I completely disagree with. I think there was some high-profile Connecticut's, but there wasn't, I think, any more or less than previous years. But the one Connecticut shade that stood out for me was the Casada Reserva Privada.
Yeah,
It's
that's a good
cigar
cigar.
that I know everyone's talking about the Undercrown Shade and the Padron for obvious reasons, but this cigar, in my opinion, was the cream of the crop as far as Connecticut shades go.
Isn't that funny though? How like two big companies can come out with something and it's the year of this.
Yeah,
It's the year of the Connecticut because Drew Estate and Padron come out with one.
they were. I mean, but you haven't seen a from those two companies, they were very high-profile ones,
That's good.
and we can judge them for what they were, but they were high-profile.
Yeah, absolutely. Trying to think. Some of my favorite Connecticut. You know who has a good Connecticut, and I think it came out this year. And John, you probably wanted to chime in and talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Victor Vitali is
Yep.
Tortuga,
Solid.
Connecticut. That's a really, really good Connecticut. I think it's a Connecticut shade wrapper.
Connecticut shade, you betcha.
That's a good smoke. And did we review that?
We did, yeah.
You did, and I was supposed to do a group review. I mean, can you guys tell I've been a little bit unplugged for the past few weeks with the holidays, and then I was out on vacation. And by the way, taking a vacation the week before Christmas is a stupid idea. Just don't ever do it. It's absolutely stupid. I had a great time, but it's just dumb. Anyway. But yeah, I know we reviewed that one. What you gave that a pretty good score, right, John?
Got a box split rating, which I'm usually a pretty hard scorer when it comes to getting to that box split. So, for me, a box split is truly, I would go on the internet and spend my money right now to buy that cigar. And to me, that was at the show. I think we walked about 10 feet away from his booth and we went back because we were like, hey, do you have any more of these? Yeah.
So we could review it.
So we could review it.
Yeah, it was we were hanging out with Victor, and he says, "Here, I smoked this because we hadn't smoked it yet." And while we were doing an interview with him, and we walked away, we thought, "Man, we need to review this."
What size did you guys review? You
It's a good
remember?
question.
Because I reviewed the 7x56, the Regios, and I was really surprised how that cigar performed in a usually big Connecticut's I stay away from, but that performed very well in that 7x56.
7x56 is
That's
a
a
big
big
ass
cigar.
cigar.
It's big, and normally with a Connecticut, actually it's a 7.5x56, and normally with a Connecticut, I just usually will stay away from them, but that I thought was very good in that size.
You've got to have a lot of nuance from a Connecticut to hold my interest for that long.
Yep.
Because that's a 2.5 hour smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I reviewed it in the Robusto Extra, the 5x52, because I kind of feel like if you got a Robusto, that should probably be the real cigar that's going to showcase that blend. So to me, that's kind of the safe. If you can perform as a Robusto, and if it's got a Corona, maybe it's excellent or somewhat better. But if it performs as a Robusto, then the rest of the line should be equally as good.
There's one Connecticut that you guys are missing, and that's the Perdomo Special Craft Series, where they did the Connecticut, the Sun Grown, and the Maduro for the Pilsner, the Amber, and I guess the Lager.
Right. Yeah. I haven't smoked that one.
Okay. For me, that was a really good Connecticut to come out this year. That's probably near the top of my list. And I'm not a big fan of Connecticut, so.
I do like a Connecticut. I'll have to track that one down. I do like a good Connecticut. I mean, I always go back to the Casada 40th Corona Classica. They used the Connecticut shade on that, Ecuadorian Connecticut on that. And
for me, when a lot of the production went from Connecticut to Ecuadorian Connecticut, the cigars became a little bit more bitter. And to try to find cigars now that lack that bitterness that coincides with Connecticut, for me, has been a little difficult.
That's a fair point, too.
That La Serena Porthole also released as a Connecticut as well. There's an option for
Yeah, you love that cigar.
And I'm the first, and I hate to say it, but like not a lot of the La Serena stuff has really floated my boat at all. Like if you look back at my scores, it's been like mid 80s, low 80s, and that Porthole absolutely blew me out of the water. That was close to Cigar of the Year candidate for me.
Interesting. So that probably kind of leads into this question. We've got some audience questions I'm going to fill in throughout the show as we go. This one's from Harley Holmes, and I'm going to throw this at David. So what was your biggest surprise of 2015? Kind of the same question I asked Coop, but now it's a little more formal because it comes from the audience.
Oh, well.
Biggest surprise.
Biggest surprise. It was a strange year for me because I went from not being just a blogger, but to working in a shop full-time. Went to the show for the first time ever. So, boy, separating it all out and paying attention to all the stuff that happens. Almost said a bad word. All the stuff that happens in the industry throughout the year. What was a surprise? I mean, the show was so big. I was reading on somebody else's blog today about how next year's show floor is supposed to be significantly smaller than what we saw in New Orleans this year.
Well, I think just the venue.
A lot of walking.
Yeah, Vegas is smaller.
Just the venue in Vegas is, I think, significantly smaller.
Okay.
I don't know the square footage. Coop, you'd probably know better than I would. You're the fact guy on this stuff.
It was. The thing is, I don't know if I can't. Vegas is pretty big, but the difference with New Orleans is it's a long.
Yeah. It's long and skinny.
Well, Vegas has more of a square or rectangular thing, so it goes deeper. So
Yeah.
you were doing a lot of that back and forth walking if you had appointments. Which
Oh dear God, it was bad. Yeah, just thank God the air conditioner was working. Me and my boss got in the day before the show actually started. We got our badges and we went up. We went up to the door and the guy let us in. We're like, okay, guess we're supposed to go in. So we're got in there walking around, and they were setting up the show. No AC in that convention hall, and we're walking around. I'm like, really? They're working in this crap? That is, by the way, Barry, how I was able to be the first one on the planet to weasel a kilo. We just happened to walk up to the United table there when Dave Garofalo was cracking open the box, and I was like, "Oh, hey, I know that cigar." And he's like, "Oh, here, have some." I'm like, "What a deal!"
Yeah, it's true Nicaraguan and cigar show fashion. It was promised like 3 weeks before the show. 3 weeks comes and goes. 2 weeks comes and goes.
Mañana.
Oh, yeah.
And at the 11th hour, they delivered it right to the booth the day before the show opened.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
While I was standing there. What timing?
That's funny. So from the stuff that you saw at the show, and the cigars that you've smoked, I mean, given that you're working in a shop now, so you have access maybe to more cigars than I do, or some of the other guys here on the show do. What were some of the things that stood out to you?
Either
Positive or negative. Doesn't have to be always what was the best.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, there were. I guess I'm just finding out through smoking stuff, through the reps coming in. Not to mention any names, but there are some big company reps. They come in, they drop stuff off. I have a habit of not tossing anything, and there's been a couple that I've just flat out tossed because, man, they were bad. Name names? Is that what you said?
Yes, name names.
Yeah.
Gurkha Royal Challenge Maduro. That thing was god awful. And I don't even know if that was this year or last year or what, but that was just horrid. The stuff that surprised me, I didn't want to get into the hype, you know. At the show, my boss sent me to go talk to Steve Saka. I sit down with him. He gives me a Ratzilla, and I'm like, "What the hell is this? Like the greatest hits, thing?" And I'm like, "No samples." And he says, "No, they're not ready yet." And I'm like, "Steve, you're smoking one right now." And he says, "Yeah, but I know how they're supposed to taste when they're done." And I'm like, "Okay, fine." But I'm not going to get into the hype. But we're going to buy into this because I know there's a lot of people going to want to buy it. We got it into the shop finally in November, and I was like, holy crap, really? I mean, yeah, and I posted it today, Cigar of the Year for me. It is just fantastic. The Cervantes Fina size especially, but the Corona Gorda, the Robusta Larga are both incredibly good as well. The Americano I didn't care for as much, but I just can't believe how good it is and how complex it is for a mostly Nicaraguan cigar.
So, just for those of you guys just tuning in, we're talking about the Sobre Mesa from Steve Saka, Dumbarton Tobacco and Trust, I think is the name of his company.
Yeah.
Just to let you guys know. Also, you're listening to Cigar Chat, brought to you live on CigarFederation.com, broadcast around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. Thanks for tuning in wherever you are out there in the world today. We've got some fellow members of the cigar media here. We're talking about some of the highs and lows and ups and downs of 2015. The Sobre Mesa, for me, that I think certain things are set up to fail. Like True Detective Season 2 was completely set up to fail. And it did. I mean, it was a steaming pile. It was horrible. Because the first season was so good and everybody wanted the next one, and there's no way they could do it. And so Steve Saka's been out of the game for 2 years. He can finally come back, and everybody thinks he's going to come out with the best cigar of the year. And lo and behold, the guy did.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm speaking for myself, and there's a lot of people who agree. Obviously, David agrees with that. That's got to be to rise up with that much, with those expectations. And that was one of the things that Steve talked about. We had him on the show a while back, and we had a lengthy interview with him at IPCPR, and he talked about. That was his biggest deal. It was like, man, there's the expectations are so high, and I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to meet those expectations. And he did, in my opinion.
To play devil's advocate, did he really meet those expectations? A lot of people figured Liga provided number 9 2.0, when obviously, and even self-admittedly by Steve Saka, that this is not that cigar. He might be coming out with a stronger cigar in the future that might be more Liga-esque, but there's a few of us here that work retail. Robbie, David, we both have our hands in on retail. And I know when the Sobre Mesa first came out, I mean, they flew off the shelves. And now a lot of us are on our second shipment, and it seems like it's already begun to slow down a little bit.
Interesting.
And I'm curious how many people grabbed it expecting Liga 2.0 to find out it wasn't, and they were one and done. Let's wait for the next big thing. And it seems like a lot of the smaller boutique companies, everybody's like, all right, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
And at this point, Steve is still boutique.
Yep.
That's an interesting point because, I mean, we talked about that during our interviews with Steve and when we had him on the show. And even before smoking the cigar, I mean, with one thing that Steve did, and I thought he did a really good job of, was providing samples to media. He gave a lot of information with the cigars. He didn't just send cigars, here, smoke these, tell me what you think. He provided a lot of information, and based on that information, and the conversations I had with him, I knew not to expect another Liga. But that's not going to be the average customer isn't going to know that.
Exactly.
So I'm curious though. Is that David? Did you notice that as well?
We have had a lot of things going on at the shop, and so we have not reordered yet because if you allow me to put a plug in, Blind Man's Bluff Corona. We had to get we got a store exclusive. We have a lot of them, and so we had some money tied up in that. So we have to put off reordering on those until after the first of the year. But we're almost sold out.
All right, so still from the initial, so a lot of people haven't been coming in looking for it because you still have it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm steering people towards it, and through my own, because I really love that Cervantes Fina size. We sold out of that first. Unfortunately, I don't have the cigar I love the most at my fingertips. Such is life. But I've smoked some of the other ones. I think we've got half a box of Americanos left, and that's probably it right now.
Interesting.
But we are definitely going to reorder. I talked to Steve a couple weeks ago, and I said, we definitely are going to reorder. We just need to hold it until next month. We'll because of this other thing we got going on. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I'll have a review of that, your exclusive, that Corona. You sent me a few samples. I'll have a review of that, hopefully up next week. I haven't smoked a cigar in about 3 weeks because it would have been just a complete waste of a cigar, and I probably would have just coughed it all up later. So that's a little bit too much information.
No smoking section at Disneyland?
Well, it wasn't Disneyland. It was what I brought home from Disneyland with me, and not all the cool Star Wars stuff like. This had cotton candy in it.
There we go.
It's
awesome.
Big. Like, just the detail on this thing, and I'm not going to go too far, but then this had a beverage in it, and I mean, I paid. This was like the most expensive. This was more expensive than like a cocktail to buy this. Wow. It's a BB-8 replica cup from Disneyland. It was like $15.
That's
and,
awesome.
I don't know. I'm a good consumer though. So we talked about that. What about the Huehuense from Nick Melillo? He was another one from that Liga background who came out with a new cigar, and I don't feel like it's quite got the same push that the Sobre Mesa has. What do you guys think?
Well, I think they unfortunately had the misfortune of coming out first, so. By the time everybody was able to get their hands on Wednesday, Sobre Mesa was out.
Yeah.
So everybody shifted gears, forgetting about Nick and moving on to Steve. I mean, it would be interesting. Like for me, right now, it would be ideal for Nick to come out with another cigar to see if he could, capitalize on some of what Steve's been doing and switch it back to him. Because it seems like once Steve started getting around on social media, a lot of people shifted gears and moved away from Nick. At least that's my take.
Yeah, it's interesting how no matter what they do, they're always going to be tied together.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And the cigars, in a way, were a bit similar in the sense that they weren't necessarily that Liga. They kind of went in a different direction from those Liga blends, but they kind of went in the same direction. And I thought they were both great. I enjoyed both of them.
I would throw out there also in saying what Barry was saying about the whole what Steve's doing. Steve is also out there on social media and pretty constant about it, whereas Nick is in Nicaragua and pretty well sequestered himself in Nicaragua, and he doesn't get on social media a lot. And when I got a phone call at the shop from Foundation, it was Dave. What's his name? Yeah. So I know that David told me at the show that the plan was for Nick to do, for the two of them, I think, to visit all the shops that carry their stuff during 2016. Whether they do an event or not is a different issue, but I think that there could be some really good stuff come down the line if Nick decides to get out there and do a string of events around the country. I think it could really help out the cigar, especially if he does an event only type of thing while he's doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually that brings up another question here. This one's from Bob Dog. And I'm just gonna.
Rob, can I just make one point?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the thing is about Nick's cigar, very good cigar, but Casa Fernandez Factory, which I love, I don't think it was even in the top 3 though, as far as what came out of Casa Fernandez this year. So I kind of look at it like that. I think a lot of it may be, and it's a very good cigar. It may turn out to be better, but I think there was better stuff that came out of that factory this year.
So would you say that the Sobre Mesa was the best thing to come out of Hoya this year?
Best thing to come out of Hoya ever?
No, I wouldn't say
No.
I wouldn't say it's the best thing to come out of Hoya ever.
Quattro Cinco.
But this year,
This year, yeah, I would say this year. But CYB, everyone forgets a lot about CYB, and that was a great cigar that came out a few years ago out of Hoya.
yeah, that cigar got kind of a bum rap.
Yeah.
It's a good smoke, but it just didn't do very well in the market.
Steve's cigar was, I had a top 25. It wasn't out long enough for me to make it go higher, because I kind of got in late in the game. But I'm curious to see where that cigar is going to be 6 months to a year from now at age. And I'm not saying that as a negative. It could be better. It could be worse. I just don't know yet.
Okay. All right, so let me get back to this question here from Bob Dog. He wants to know, I'm just going to go down the line here with this. What company do you think is poised to have a big year in 2016? And we're going to start with Aaron because you've been quiet, man.
I don't really know anybody that's poised for a big year in 2016.
Well, who would you say had the biggest year in 2015?
Well, we already talked about Steve and Nick. I mean, they obviously had big years, but I guess Lazona probably had a really big year. I mean, they had a lot of good stuff with all the different brands that they're working with.
Hell yeah.
So I think they have a lot of traction to move forward into next year.
That's actually a really good answer for 2016.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, I'm not too sure of anything that's jumping out at me that's gonna that I'm gonna be like looking for from a company. I mean, one cigar that came out this year that kind of flew under the radar, and I'm looking forward to next year is the Kalanok, because this year they came out with the 25% of the peat fire cured tobacco, and it just wasn't. It didn't have enough oomph for me. So next year they'll come out with the 50 and the 75, and I'm thinking that the 50 is probably going to be the sweet spot, but we'll have to see it, once it comes out, if that materializes or not.
I've had the pleasure of smoking both.
Uh-huh.
You really need to be a fan of peaty Scotch
Right.
to appreciate it at 50 and 75.
Okay.
Good
25
for
was
me-
just too low, so
For me,
I'm hoping.
25 was subtle enough to be smoked on a regular basis,
Uh-huh.
but I'm not a peaty Scotch guy.
Okay.
So
Go Peter, go home, Barry. I'm sorry. Go Peter, go home.
So I'd rather have Oban or Fittich or something like that.
Yeah, but Oban is like
Oban's
it's
peated.
like- it's peated, man.
You know what though? It's on the lower end of
So-
peat. I mean, it's not Lafroig.
So what you would say? So basically, if we're talking about, they've got the 25%. That's the one that's out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be the Oban, and then they got the 50, and that's more like the what is it? Lagavulin, like a Lag 16,
Okay.
and then the 75%. That's going to be your Lafroig. So that's at least for me, John. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, right? Like, you don't want to come out with a Kalanok at 75% because you're going to, I mean, to Barry's point, that's going to be approachable for, like, what, 3% of the smoking market.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to start with the 25, get some market share, get some excitement rolling, and then you come out with the 50, the 75. And by the time you get to the 75, there's going to be, like, 3 guys who review it and enjoy it. Because it's going to be too much. But
That
the guys
75, that's got limited edition written all over.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're talking about the Kalanov from Hammer and Sickle, which has peat fire cured tobacco, which is, as far as cigars are concerned, the first one to ever do that.
Yep. And I think they're poised for a big year because they're finally getting the recognition that's pretty much existed only in the Northeast, at least from my view. I mean, when I was in Florida, I never heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I moved up here, they had a huge following because they're based in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I think the number 11 ranking in aficionado only helps solidify now that more people are going to know who they are and where they're going. And in terms, that could create a big year. I'm a huge fan of Eric Espinosa, and spent a lot of time with him in Miami. But for me, that's it's the same situation as, say, Hammer and Sickle. That's big in the southeast. Hammer and Sickle was big in the northeast.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of those two companies might be breaking out? And then another company to look for is now that Tony Gomez is doing the blending, and Lennox was a killer cigar from La Flor Dominicana. Are they poised to finally change the public perception of them? And then where's Roberto Duran going to go? They got Jack Tarano in now. They got the Cuban guy that did the Salomon. He's going to have a regular production line in 2016. So I think Duran cigars, there could be a lot of noise from in the coming new year.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was going to agree with Barry on, actually, Duran was the one that came to mind in terms of how they're investing right now. They've invested in a master blender. They're investing in marketing in their sales force, and that, they're well positioned. They have their own factory, and they source their own wrapper. So from a business standpoint, I look at they're doing some very smart things. The other company I'd say that's poised is La Polina. I think Bill Paley is wanting to move out of the boutique realm. I think it's very clear with the moves he's made in the last week, bringing in Clay Roberts and Sam Phillips. He is looking to take that company to the next level.
I think they need to find a little stability in 2016. The last couple of years, they had hired Rafael Delgado as director of sales, and Bob Marino. Courtney left. So maybe 2016 will be the year of stability and growth for La Polina. So that's a great point.
Yep, Andrew Brennan, too, was in there for a while as well. So you're right. It's been a lot. It's been a revolving door there, and they do need the stability there.
John, what do you think? You've been quiet.
I think it was Aaron who was talking about Espinosa's factory. And if I'm looking over my top list, almost all those cigars, or at least a good portion of those cigars, came out of Eric's factory, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's going to continue for 2016. I think on an individual basis, and this is probably just from a personal perspective, the guy who I'm going to be watching for 2016 is Hamlet. Hamlet Paredes, who went over to Rocky. I know, we like to give Rocky a hard time because it's Rocky, but Hamlet has an amazing palate. Hamlet has an amazing sense for tobacco, and I'm excited to see him move from, what I see is limiting tobacco with just Cuban tobacco to having anything he wants in the world. And I think, I've smoked his new Tabacero. I thought it was excellent. So I'm excited to see what's going to come out for number 2 for 2016.
Interesting stuff. That's yeah, I haven't smoked that one yet either. There's a lot that I haven't smoked this year, man.
I had a sample about 10 days ago. That cigar was so not a Rocky, and I mean that in the best way possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and totally a nice guy. Speaks perfect English, even though he's from Cuba. It'll be interesting to see if Rocky could do with him, with Hamlet, what Cubana Khan and La Polina failed to do with Rabanya. He left Cubana Khan, he left La Polina. He's now a man without a factory in the States, and will Rocky be able to capitalize on what Rabanya missed out on?
I don't think Rocky knew what he was getting with Hamlet. I think that the international group that has been to Cuba for many, many years and has personal relationships with Hamlet knew what Hamlet was. I don't think Rocky knew what Hamlet was. Yeah. So it's like, you're signing a rock star, and then all of a sudden, and I agree with you, Barry, 100%. Like, no disrespect to Rocky's cigars, but, Hamlet's cigar in terms of complexity is here, where everything else is here, and it's way outside of their portfolio, but that's a good thing.
100% agreed.
John, you're making good points, man. You made a good point. That's awesome.
It's the beer talking.
No.
Surgeon-like skill.
He's the connoisseur of all things. And actually, to go back to the Kalinaw, John, we're in the process of planning a show for sharing our pairings with that, I believe.
Yeah, we're hoping to get Eric from Hammer and Sickle on in February, and of course, I love Scotch. Robbie likes Scotch. We like peated Scotches, so that's a natural opportunity to try a Kalinaw with some range of peated Scotches. Maybe Port Charlotte, maybe KOLA. Like, there's so many options we could pair that with. So I'm kind of excited to see if that comes through. That hopefully will be locked down for February.
So, question for the group here, and this is coming from me. It's not an audience question. And a couple of you guys have mentioned one or two. What was a cigar for you that kind of flew under the radar? That, I mean, it was a cigar that you really enjoyed, but maybe it didn't really get the press that you felt like maybe it deserved. And I'm going to jump in the middle. I'll start with David.
Coming back to that whole discussion with Lazona, the Laranja, however you want to say it. I asked Eric at the show, and he says, just say Laranja, that's fine. I'm like, okay, I know that's probably not how it's really pronounced, but who cares? It's a different cigar than anything I've had coming out of that factory before. It's probably the most unique non-flavored cigar in the humidor, having such a citrus flavor to it. And we did well with it when it first came out. You used to tell me, yeah, this is really interesting, it's really good, and it sold like crazy. And then it kind of petered off a little bit, but it has a good following. I still really enjoy it, not on a daily basis, but I think it's a good smoke. I think I tried that. What was that one that they the extension they came out with, Kaixa or something?
Kaija, yeah.
Kaija.
The Crixus.
And that one was really good too. So. Yeah, I think they did well with that one.
So go ahead.
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, it's still your time.
I was gonna say something else, but it wasn't really a flow under the radar. Except for in our shop, we didn't order it at the show, so we didn't get it until late in the game. It was La Mission from L'Atelier.
Oh yeah.
Dear
yeah.
God.
That one's square above the radar, man.
Yeah, that renewed my faith that Pepin can actually do something good with Mexican wrapper, because before I just really just didn't care for anything he had done with San Andres, and I was like, I prepared not to like La Mission either, and when I tasted it, I was like, wow, really? Like, I just don't get it, but how that could be. I mean, ostensibly it's the same wrapper leaf as he used with Mia Moore, which I can't smoke at all. And then he does this, and it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that was a big hit. A couple of cigars, or I'll say a company really, and maybe this is my company that I feel is going to take a big step forward in 2016 is Mombacho. With the
Heck yeah.
with the Liga Maestro was one of the best cigars I smoked this year, and I know that was released in Italy, I think, before, but it was a new release as far as I'm concerned. And their other blend now, the name's escaping me.
Tierra Volcan
Thank
Fino.
you. Yeah, the Fino that they released this year. And Coop, you were there at that release event, and you can't say enough about the way that they run their business.
That's another company. You look at how they're investing right now. Yes.
Yeah, I mean that event they had an event. It was for media. It was for I believe there were some shop owners there, some customers there, whatever. And it was the coolest cigar event I think I've ever been to. And I think we probably talked about this. So I won't go into too much detail. But they had us in this mansion in New Orleans, and it's just kind of an old school, kind of a creepy house, really, and just gave us some interesting food and some cigars to smoke, and it was a really cool event. It was also put on by Hennessy, so we drank some. I'm not a big cognac guy, but that Hennessy they were pouring was like angel tears or something. I don't know, man. That was it was amazing. Yeah. But anyway, they're one of my companies that I've loved all their blends that they've done so far. I like the way that they do business, and I can see them, taking some steps forward in 2016 for sure. So let's, Coop, something for you that kind of flew under the radar.
This one's completely under the radar because I heard nobody talk about this cigar this year. I had it in my top 15. It's the Felipe Gregorio Art of Power 2015 edition. This thing's an absolute flavor bomb, and the thing is, they kind of, sometimes the power of suggestion maybe can play on you. They told me that this cigar is going to smoke and it's going to have this salted caramel note in it. And I was like, And I kind of said, really? And it does. But there's a lot of complexity with that cigar, too. It very much has a tobacco taste. Philippe Gregorio's kind of, there's stuff I like from them and there's stuff I haven't liked from them. This is one of the best cigars they've put out. Very much under the radar because I've heard nobody talking about this cigar this year.
That's a company that nobody really talks about.
They're a mid-Atlantic company. They have more of a following in the Virginia area.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've heard of them. I'm familiar. I've smoked some of their stuff, but I haven't smoked the one that you're talking about. But I mean, what else is there? I haven't smoked anything.
Yeah, they're very much full. I mean, like I said, I think they're more of a regional because in Virginia there is where I tend to see most of their stuff.
Interesting. So that's one to look out for. John, what about you?
You know, I think, and I don't know if it's under the radar, but Protocol, the Bacubacuino, I mean, I know there's a lot of activity on social media, but I don't know if there's that much activity in B&Ms, and I feel like that was, you know, I think the risk of releasing a cigar that good as your first cigar is that everyone says, okay, that's fantastic. Now what are you going to do for 2016? And there's going to be so much pressure on those guys to release something as good or better for 2016. Honestly, you know, for a first release, I don't think they could have asked for more. Coop and I were kind of talking about, and we haven't mentioned it this show yet, but how about the Don Ronaldo? I haven't heard that tossed around at all.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember we were down in Orlando last December when the first release came out of it. And, yeah, I think we were both very, very impressed with that cigar from Warped.
I mean, it's such a clear leader for me in terms of complexity and structure. And I was, you know, having come off the 2014 IPCPR saying, okay, well, your blends are really, really good. What are you going to follow up with in 2015 to match this? And so now, you know, you come out with the 2015 Don Ronaldo, which is better than the 2014 Don Ronaldo. You come out with the Skyflower. You come out with the B&M exclusive. You come out with all these cigars that are really, really excellent, like all top performing. That's pretty good performance for, you know, back-to-back years.
Futuro.
Oh, the Futuro was incredible.
Yeah, Warped went from you know, just a couple of cigars to now they've got, you know, like a full portfolio in the blink of an eye, really. When you think about it in the grand scheme of things, their growth rate to me is kind of along the same lines as Crowned Heads, when they started out kind of slow and then boom, and then took off, and they have all these different releases. Although they're actually kind of maybe Crowned Heads, but a little bit quicker than that.
Yeah, but I give Warp credit. They've done it without having to go the Uber limited route. I mean, there's been a couple of limiteds.
They've had a few.
For the most part, they've had I'd say limited production, but the stuff, you know, you can get the stuff. There's a couple of releases that are tougher than others, but you can get it.
The only limitation, Coop, is that the B&M won't let you buy them all.
Well, we had that problem in Orlando, and I know Jeff Borshowitz too. That didn't work.
Even when you know people, and Coop knows people. If anybody knows people, Coop knows people.
Well, my son goes to college in Orlando, and I sent him back there, and they sold out. So I tried that route too.
You even tried using mules, huh? That's funny. Okay, Barry, same question for you, man. Something that flew under the radar.
I think for a lot of people, and I didn't see much of it with bloggers, but Recluse came out with a Habano this
Great
year.
Cigar.
And for me, that cigar had so much flavor, and you know, box press, which I'm a huge fan, and I just think that was a cigar that a lot of people don't know about, haven't tried, or even maybe have a hard time finding. But for me, that's the cigar. Might have been the best cigar I smoked all year in terms of regular production smokes.
Really? Interesting. Yeah, I loved that, what was the Draconian? Is that the one that they came out with a few years ago?
Yeah.
I thought that was a great blend. And the Amadeus, I think, was another one that they did.
If you haven't had this one, Rob,
I haven't.
I agree with Barry. I think it's the best one they've done.
Really?
I was blown away by this cigar, yeah.
Interesting.
It was in my top 20 as well. It was a really good cigar.
Huh. Now, see, that's legit under the radar. Because, I mean, nobody's, like you said, nobody's talking about that. Wow.
Yeah, we have because Scott Weeks is based in the Charlotte area, there are a little more available here. So, it's not quite as under the radar here, but I think nationwide in this parts probably people haven't heard of this.
So I need to get some North Carolina mules. My father-in-law lives out in North Carolina. I'll have him send me some.
Yep.
There we go. Aaron, what about you, man?
For me, the Macanudo Estate Reserve, I think, is one that flew under the radar.
I liked that cigar too, man.
People are used to Macanudos that are, light and fluffy and, not a lot of flavor. And the price tag probably doesn't help it either. But that cigar was very different than any other Macanudo I've ever smoked. And it's definitely stronger than most of their other stuff. And the flavor is, I think, fantastic. So I think it probably gets missed just because of the, what people think of the brand. Yeah, exactly. I mean, similar to things that happened to Rocky, and then over the last couple of years we started putting out some good stuff. But that's a cigar I'd say that kind of flew under the radar. I don't think I've seen really much of anything kind of written about that cigar.
There was that other Dunhill too that we talked about.
Yep, the Selection Suprema. I believe. Yeah.
That didn't come out yet though, but that didn't get released yet.
Yeah.
Oh, it hasn't been released yet.
I don't think it has been.
Coop, you are on point.
Because that, I agree. I know when we did the IPCBR wrap-up show, I smoked it.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. You guys were smoking it. That's right.
Smoking it that night, yeah.
And so that one hasn't even come out yet. Okay.
I don't think it's come out yet.
So that's really under the radar then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one to really look forward to.
We were talking about the Macanudo Jamaica State Reserve before I dropped off there.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
And you want to chime in?
Yeah.
Or we just
it was a fantastic cigar.
We did a pairing show with that. And we paired it with stouts, if memory serves. Stouts and porters, right?
And it stood up.
It did. Although I think we may have overshot a little bit with the beer that we chose. But and when Aaron says stronger than a Macanudo, you're talking about strength, relatively speaking, of course. It was still kind of a medium, or I'm sorry, a mild plus for me as far as strength was concerned. But it had a lot more body to it than a Macanudo. I mean, I haven't religiously smoked a Macanudo in a long time, and I mean every now and again one pops up and you smoke it. But that's a cigar that I've found myself going back to, and I don't know if we've posted a review for that one yet, John. I know you and I are supposed to do it, and I've been holding you up, but.
Yeah, that was an easy box split, and I think there's.
It's a tough box split with the price point, though.
It's crazy box split, and I wanted to ask Coop because one of the top scoring cigars for me was the Dunhill Selection Suprema. Coop, did you have a chance to try that?
We talked about that when you were dropped off. Sorry, Coop, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No,
Go ahead.
And I'm saying, John, it was I don't think it's been released yet, and if it was, that probably would have been in contention for my top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at, like you say to me, Dunhill, you say Macanudo, I think the big name of them works against them. Like I think there's an inherent, I don't want to necessarily like something from the big company. So in a way, I look at the score that it gets and how good it was, and I say, well, if it came from a boutique company, would that be scoring 3 or 4 points higher? And I kind of think it would be.
You might not have a bad point there. Especially when you're talking about names like Dunhill and Macanudo in the online cigar media circles, we don't talk about those names all that much. For the reasons that their blends, for the most part, their blends are pretty old and they haven't really come out with anything new and exciting. But maybe this is something that kind of turns that corner. I don't know. We'll see if they can keep it up because I do like both of those blends. The Dunhill Heritage, I haven't smoked it yet. But I saw that was ranked really high in the Cigar Aficionado Top 25. So
it's in the hopper. We'll see how it performs.
Yeah, it's another one that I'm supposed to be helping you out with on a group review, I'm sure. John's been
a couple of those, the Dunhill Heritage, and I was surprised. The only reason I haven't recommended to the owner of the shop to bring it in is because I have yet to have a single person walk in the shop and say, "Do you have Dunhill?" And we just can't, I can't be recommending every damn cigar that we carry. I mean, it gets to a point where, you've got the kind of the way we're operating is that 70 or 80% of the stuff that we carry needs to be stuff that sells itself. And that leaves us room to work on the boutiques and the, stuff that no one's heard of, or maybe it's a big company, but they've got something new out and people haven't heard of this new thing, so we have to introduce them to that. And you if no one's asking for Dunhill, we're not bringing it.
But you did like the cigar, though.
I did. I did enjoy it. I thought it was. It surprised me a lot.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I've got samples, and like I said, we're supposed to have a review coming up pretty soon. I think we've got time.
Unless you're 70 years old and British, you're not asking for Dunhill.
Or if you're smoking a pipe.
Or if you're smoking a pipe.
If you're smoking a pipe, you're always asking for Dunhill.
Hey, the armed forces will tell you, don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
Is that still a policy? I don't know. But let's move on. We've got. I think we got time for one more round the way question here. So what was something we talked about? Companies that surprised you and cigars that surprised you. What was something that disappointed this year? We'll end on a down note. And I'm going to start with John. John, what was something that didn't really? You know what? I'll start with myself. There were a couple of releases that were for, and I don't mean to pick on this particular shop. I'm just talking about these particular releases because they are from cigar makers that I enjoy. For Stogies in Houston, the H-Town Lancero series that they're doing. And I haven't smoked all of them, but I smoked a couple of their releases that came out this year, the Tatuaje, which everybody was raving about. That was a miss for me. It wasn't a bad cigar in the sense like I put it out. It was missing some of those flavors that I really look for, especially in a Tatuaje. And even the Nomad, which was a company we haven't really talked about. But those two releases for me were a little bit of a letdown. Just from things that I've read, everybody was kind of high on those things, and I love the stuff that Fred's doing, but those two releases for me were misses. But so we'll pass it on to John. Give you a little time to think.
Well, you've really thrown me under the bus because I wasn't. You know what? I'm gonna go on a limb here and I'll say I don't know if it's a miss, but perhaps my expectations. The La Imperiosa. After enjoying so many great cigars from Crown Heads, and Crown Heads kind of being my go-to, I think I was expecting more out of La Imperiosa, and I don't know if that's a failure of the cigar or a failure of my expectations, where my expectations were so high for that cigar that I don't think it met them.
Interesting. Speaking of Crown Heads, I'm getting off topic, and maybe we will just whatever. We've got a few minutes left. Has anybody smoked the Black Belt Buckle? Their famous cigars, exclusive. No. That's the 4 kicks, and they put I think a San Andreas wrapper on it. No, nobody smoked that one.
No, for me, this leads into why, and I love Hubert, why the company's been a disappointment. For me, it seems like limited edition to limited edition to limited edition. Okay, they're gathering trademarks, and if the FDA thing ever goes through, and they ever change the date from 2007 to the date it actually gets put through, they've created a series of trademarks that they can now use as regular edition releases. But it seems like the company's lost focus of their core lines. Nobody's talking about Jericho Hill, nobody's talking about 4 Kicks. And it just seems like them, Caldwell with the stick of butter cigar. Everybody was talking about King is Dead and what a great cigar it is, but they went, limited edition to limited edition to limited edition. And I think Pete Johnson realized that you can't do that all the time, and he's not going to do any limited editions this year because, seeing it on retail, nobody was going chasing the brown label and the red label. They just wanted, the M80, or they wanted whoever did a limited release, and his core lines were forgotten. And brands like Crown Heads need to get back to their core.
Well, one thing I will say, to be fair, the limited edition and limited releases or limited editions from the company, not Crown Heads. What was the other company you just mentioned? I'm losing.
Caldwell, the butter cigar.
Yeah, their limited editions are different from the Crown Heads limited editions. Crown Heads are mainly regional releases.
Right.
So, I mean, they are still limited in the sense, but they're not limited like they're only making so much of them. So it's
right. Well, their limiters are doing, what can we get from a factory that's a closeout, stick a label on it, and call it something else.
Yeah, that's a different story. Yeah.
But nobody's talking about the King is Dead anymore, which was a great cigar when it came out because everybody's too busy chasing the limited edition.
That was an amazing cigar.
So one point, and this was probably my favorite interview from IPCPR, and I think we'll probably have to end on this because we're going to go around and let everybody know where they can find you online as we wrap up our AFRN segment. This year, I hadn't interviewed Dion from Illusione before, and this year we were both getting some coffee from what's the coffee company, John? I'm losing names, man.
Calling it Twin Engine. We're
Twin Engine. We're both standing there getting some Twin Engine coffee. The booth was right next to Illusione. And so Dion and I sat down for a quick little interview, and I'd asked him, well, what's new? And he said he wasn't really doing a new release this year. He did a line extension for Fume de Amor in the Lancero. But the point that he made, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but I just thought it was refreshing, especially in this industry, is he didn't want to come out with something new when he had a cigar that was successful last year in the Fume de Amor, and he wants that cigar to really get its foothold in the industry before expanding on. So expand that cigar maybe at a line or two in a different Vitola, but he didn't want to saturate his customer base, I guess, with some limited editions or some new releases. He just kind of stuck with what was working, and I don't know. There's something refreshing about that. It's kind of the opposite of what you were just talking about, Barry. So I don't know. I just thought that was a good point. And obviously, Illusione is doing pretty well, so that's working out for him. But John, how much time do we have left? Like a couple minutes, yeah?
I think we're down to 1 minute and 35 seconds.
Okay, so real quick, we're gonna go down the line. Coop, let everybody know where they can find you online.
Cigar Coop, www.cigar-coop.com, and www.stogiegeeks.com for the podcast.
Cool. Coop, thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. John, everybody can find you on Cigar Federation. I'm going to skip you. David, let everybody know where they can find you, man.
I am at leafenthusiast.com, or if you're heading through Chattanooga, you can stop by Burns Tobacconist and find me there most days.
Nice little plug. Good job. Barry, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at thecigarauthority.com. Weekly podcast 12 to 2 on Saturdays. So when Cigar Federation isn't broadcasting, come check us out. And you can also find me at Two Guys Smoke Shop in Nashua, New Hampshire, Salem, New Hampshire, and Seabrook, New Hampshire.
Well played. Well played. Aaron, where can everybody find you?
He can hit me up on Twitter, smoke_Aaron, or on Instagram, aloomis72.
Cool. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out. It's always a blast to chat with you guys. Everybody out there in the armed forces, thank you so much for what you guys do. I've told you this before. You guys are built to do something I'm not built to do. And thank you for keeping us safe so we can sit here and wax poetic about cigars and whiskey and stout. I hope you guys are enjoying your holiday season. You get to spend some time with your families. Everybody have a great weekend. Have a happy new year. And everybody stay safe. And we'll be back next year. All right, that's the end of the Armed Forces segment. And this is when Logan will tell you it's okay to say shit, bitch, cock balls.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
fucking A.
Now everybody can take the girdles off and let it out.
For a New Yorker, not to curse for an hour. That was
I'm fucking walking here. So I just want to jump in and say, because everyone's talking about 2015 being the year of the Connecticut. Not true. 2015 was the year of the line extension. 2015 was the year where companies were not excited about releasing new cigars, but extending what they had in their existing portfolio.
I think it was 2015 was the year companies basically decided to, actually the factories decided to unload everything they had, and you got a bunch of limited edition line extensions.
That's what I've been saying for a year, Coop. I've been saying
that's what the year it was been.
That's what I'm saying. It's this with all this FDA stuff. If you've got stuff in the pipeline, flush it out. That pipe, empty the pipeline. Give it a nice push, and whoop, everything's out. And if if everything, the FDA stuff, whatever goes away, who knows? Then fine, you refill the pipeline, but you worry about that later.
Yep.
I think it's been the last 2 years, man, because there's been so many, just like Barry was saying, so many different limited releases and store releases and Eastern region releases and Omaha releases, and I mean, there's so many different things coming out that it's just get all that stuff out. You don't want to be sitting on that money in case shit hits the fan.
It's weird. Now that I'm like on retail, it's changed so much because I used to be the guy looking for the limited edition. I used to be the guy that wanted to smoke everything new, like L'Oranger and various other cigars. But on the retail side, you see people that are gravitating toward those cigars are not the box buyers. Give me 2 or 3, and what's next? So you get so many brands that just sit on the shelves and then eventually wind up in the budget bin that nobody's focusing on releasing a cigar that has long-term legs, which is disappointing.
Our biggest 2 brands in the shop are Fuente and Padron. Fuente Padron. You can't skip a week of ordering Fuente and Padron, or you will run out of something. Somebody will be without their 7,000 Maduros or their Londres Naturals or their Double Chateaus or something, and it's just, dear God.
We go through 150 boxes every 6 weeks of Padron.
Yeah,
wow,
it's insane.
We
don't do that many, but it's pretty damn big.
Wait, time out. This isn't going to be published anywhere, this part, is it?
Absolutely it is.
We're still live.
We're live.
You have to wait till the really after dark.
I'll tell you when it's safe to say that stuff. You can wait for that.
All right. So taking notes.
The Padron, the Damaso. How did that do?
I was gonna bring that up as a disappointment for this year. So
I liked the cigar, and it
started out so slow, and now on the mail order side, we're seeing more and more people order them, more and more people try them. The problem is they went after Davidoff. A Davidoff guy isn't going to pick up a Padron because they just think it's Nicaraguan, it's stronger, and what have you. Even though they look the same, even the band, it's gold and white. But it just seems like they haven't been able to take the Davidoff smoker. Maybe if they came in at $9 instead of $16, they would have grabbed some of them.
Interesting.
And I agree with him. I think it's a great cigar. I really do love it. However, sales have been a little slow on it just because people expect, it's going to be a Padron, it's going to tear my face off or whatever. And this isn't, and so I tell people, this isn't what, you're going to be used to in a 1964. It just isn't. But it is a great cigar. Give it a try. And most people that do really enjoy it.
Yeah, I found myself enjoying that cigar. I can't remember what the price point is off the top of my head, but I remember it being pretty high.
Yeah.
What it's,
where you are.
Hey,
you want to talk taxes? We can talk taxes.
I want to say it's like $15 a stick, give or take.
At least.
In my area out here in California.
13 to 19 where I am.
Okay, yeah. So it's pricey, and this is a weird thing to say, but this is the first thing that popped into my head. That's really expensive for a Connecticut. Now, why would I even think that?
Because you don't smoke enough Davidoff.
Maybe that's it. I don't know, but that's the thing that popped into my head. It's like, wow, that's really expensive for a Connecticut.
Yeah.
Huh. I don't know why I think that's a thought that I need to dissect a little bit. One cigar we didn't talk about during the show that was a huge hit this year, or at least it seemed like it was, and I only smoked it once when we did the pairing show. I bought a couple, but I had to send one to John because he can't get it in Canada.
Even with my new gig, I still can't get it.
The American Barrel Aged from Camacho. Now did you guys like that cigar? What did you guys think of it?
it was a miss for me.
Is it? Yeah, you kind of grunted when I said it, so that was a big time miss for you.
No good for me.
Coop, what did you think?
Size mattered. The Toro size was excellent. The Gordo size was very good, and the Robusto was a miss.
The Robusto. Aaron, did you smoke the Robusto?
I smoked the Toro.
Oof.
I smoked the Robusto, and I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it as well.
And
you liked it, Barry?
I tell people.
Definitely. I mean, it didn't have that strong bourbon taste that I think a lot of people expected. And I'm sorry I cut you off, Dave.
Oh, no problem. I tell people I tell people that it's more the more important part of the name is the American part rather than the barrel age part of it, because it's got Pennsylvania broadleaf, Connecticut broadleaf on the wrapper and in the filler, and then a little bit of Honduran Corojo aged in a barrel. So you're getting a little bit of that barrel aged thing, but you're getting a lot of American tobacco, and to me it's a really good smoke. It's not for everybody. I get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I know Seth reviewed it, I believe, and gave it like a 999 or something. I don't know.
Which to be fair, Seth, like you gotta keep in mind, Seth smokes a lot of Cuban cigars. So for Seth
true.
to give a mainstream Alec Bradley anything over like an 85 means that's a pretty fucking good cigar.
But every Cuban cigar is the same.
Exactly.
There you go. And draw tested by mouth.
No, I know we did the pairing show with that, and I remember enjoying it. But it's tough to get a good feel on a cigar when the first time you smoke it, you're pairing it with 4 different types of bourbon.
Yeah, absolutely.
But after 4 different types of bourbon, you like any cigar.
Damn
At that
right.
point, I mean, it's like, hey, what? Yeah, this is awesome.
Hey, this quorum's great.
Yeah, this is just beauty.
Hey, you know what? As a guy who has migrated into the retail market, I gotta say, Quorum is a great seller.
Yeah.
Sells well. I mean, I go,
Going hard.
okay, that's what you like. Okay, I'll take it up to the till for you.
Yeah.
Oh, we actually had an audience request. This one's for Barry.
Oh God.
Barry, can you smile?
No. Sorry.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, Kruk was asking if you could smile. So
I say Croc all the time. He's from New Hampshire. He's a
Well,
pain in the ass, but I love him.
oh, that's
I
why he
love
made
Kruk.
so many comments here.
That sounds
He,
about
Love
right.
Krug.
he was curious who was doing the dishes in the background. All that noise was coming from your microphone there, Barry.
I tried to, I kept hitting mute. And
You did. I appreciate that. Once you caught on, I was trying to like signal you, but it wasn't working. Yeah, once you caught on, you did a good job of.
Yeah, my fiance was cleaning up after dinner.
That's yeah. Like I said this before, but congratulations, man. Good for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bob Dog, this is probably for Coop. Bob Dog wants to know if there's any leaks on the 2016 Las Calaveras. Anybody heard anything about it?
No, because John Huber doesn't send me personal information.
Oh, we touched a nerve. Touched a nerve.
John
touched.
Huber does not believe in press releases.
Yeah, I don't think he sends it to anybody.
Well,
No,
it
he
seems like
does-
he does with one site, but that's
Uh-oh.
Only if you look like a lady boy are you going to get the
Oh boy, we touched a
wow.
nerve. Touched a nerve.
Hey, look, the bottom line is there's so many brands out there, and we're covering a lot of brands, and if that's fine, he doesn't choose to send it, but I got to focus on the brands that are basically sharing information with us.
Absolutely, that makes
So it's
that makes
nothing
total
per-
sense.
It's a business decision by him. I respect it. So,
Yeah, no, that makes
Yeah.
total sense. Look at Bob Dog bringing up touchy questions, man.
Hey, but guys, how good was that Ramona Alon's Selection Suprema last year? What? No?
Crickets. I think he's talking about a Cuban cigar that I don't know anything about.
Yeah, Cuban cigar, top 25, something.
It's funny. Everybody in
very good. Very good.
oh, Coop
Sure.
chimes in.
Yeah, but would it make your top 10 list?
Well, it wasn't. You know what? I don't think it would have made top 10. It possibly was a top 25. Ramon Ionis was in general a Cuban brand that was long overdue to make Cigar Aficionado's list.
Okay, so I mean, I know they don't make the list based on the current year, but if you were to make a current list of the year and you're going to include a Cuban cigar, to me, the Club Ionis, the 2015 edition Limitada, that should have been the cigar that they had on their top 25 list.
I agree.
If you get like that cigar to me, and I went down to Cuba, I smoked like 4 boxes. That was an amazing Cuban cigar. It was amazing.
How long were you in Cuba?
7
Long
days.
enough to smoke 4 boxes.
Yeah. Well, that's
That's a
like
nice
2 days.
trip.
That's like 2 days.
So I'll ask the group: how often do you guys smoke Cuban cigars? Because I rarely ever do. There's so much coming out of, and I'm behind as it is. There's so much coming out from Nicaragua and Dominican, and cigar companies that we have ready access to. That I don't seem to have time to smoke Cuban cigars.
Before I worked in the cigar industry, I smoked them on a regular basis because I used to do a lot of international travel. Now that I don't travel, I don't have the desire to chase it. And even when I was overseas, I would have still rather had a Nicaraguan cigar over the Cuban cigar.
Yeah, interesting.
So,
Yeah, I mean, especially in your line of work, and same with you, David, you probably don't smoke them very often at all.
I don't have any desire to. I mean, honestly, I don't want to support the regime. That's one issue. But the other thing is, I've had some good Cubans, and I've had some really shitty ones, and I feel like, what's the big deal? I'll take a Sober Mesa or a Tat TAA, or I can go through the shop and count off 100 different cigars I'd rather have than whatever random Cuban you give me. So it is what it is.
Take that, John.
I don't know what I'm taking. I mean, I'm the first one to sit there arguing with Cuban snobs here in Canada who are like, oh, non-Cuban cigars suck dick. And it's like, sorry you don't have a palate to taste flavors other than cream and hay, but there's a world.
Was that hay or A?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, eh? Yeah, no, I mean, because I know there's a lot of people who talk about, they're like, oh, Cuban cigars get a lot of hate. It's like, listen, I straddle both worlds. I can tell you, non-Cubans get a lot more hate than Cubans every day of the week.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I just like Dave was saying. I just don't. It doesn't blow my dress up. Like I don't get excited trying to track them down or, feel special that I've got them. If somebody's passing them out, sure, I'll smoke one. But my wife bought me a box of Monte Cristo Double Mundos, and I enjoy those.
Hey, how about
Oh.
Sorry?
Glass
The glass
top.
top, yeah, absolutely.
Robbie? How about that Hamlet Salomon though?
I haven't smoked that yet.
You gotta smoke that, bro.
You gave me that, that's 3 years. I've had that for 3 years.
That cigar is worth probably its weight in gold at this point on the secondary market.
Hey, speaking of the Hamlet stuff, I got a sample. It was, I believe, left at the shop by a Rocky rep. I wasn't there that day, so I found it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna smoke this. I haven't had any of them yet. It was a Maduro. I'm not even familiar with what he's doing, really. I smoked like an inch of it and said, man, I'm done. Woo. This is terrible. Bad stick, or is that just not a good one? Or
John's shaking his head. I don't know. I haven't smoked it. I've seen it. I don't like the look of it. I mean, I can say that much. That's all I can really contribute. I mean, and we did meet Hamlet at IPCPR and gave him an interview, and he was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And John knows him personally, and they're friends as far as I know. But I haven't smoked the cigar.
Yeah.
So, John, maybe you're not the best person to ask, but I know you have smoked it.
Barry can back me up. Barry was talking about how good it was.
Yeah, I mean, I totally enjoyed it. Like I said, it was
that's
totally
right.
different from Rocky. It was cool. He was in the shop. He was telling us how, he blended the cigar, and the press release comes out, and it says it features Brazilian tobacco. And he had to call up Nish and Rocky going, I didn't use Brazilian tobacco. And so they're looking at the blend, and they're telling him you used Matafina. That's from Brazil. He goes, I'm from Cuba. What do I know where all this tobacco's from? This is the tobacco I had to work with, and I made a cigar. So he had no clue that Matafina was Brazilian, which is interesting because he didn't, he just wanted to create something that to him tasted good and not care where anything was from.
That is kind of interesting when you think about it. I mean, so he was just going purely on taste.
Yep.
This is the blend that I want, and this is the flavor profile I have in mind, and these are the tobaccos that make that happen.
No preconceived notions, and
Yeah. That's how he blended in Cuba. So you'd have a Hamlet in Cuba, and you're like, this is not a cigar that tastes like anything else I've had, because he blends entirely based on how it tastes. He's not going to blend based on a particular tobacco. He's going to say, I either like this or I don't, and that's all there is.
All right. Well, I think I told you guys to have you free for about an hour, and we've gone a little bit over that. So I think we'll wrap it up. But I want to thank you guys again for taking the time. This was very cordial. It was kind of nice. I mean, we're all members of the cigar media, and nobody was telling anybody that you're stupid or you're telling anybody to shut up. I mean, Barry started getting boisterous at the end, which I kind of expected. But this was nice. It was a lot of fun just to hang out and chat with you guys. We don't get to do it often enough. Usually, whenever we see each other, we're at an event. We're all doing our own thing. So it's kind of nice to take the time out to chat a little bit. So I appreciate you guys stepping away from your families this evening and chatting with us.
No, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll catch up with you sometime next year. We'll do one maybe post IPCPR and talk about all the stuff that we're excited about and how tired David's feet are and all that. No, my dogs start barking too, man. That was the one thing about that venue was it was so long. It was so landscape. You know, I mean, it's. You know, Vegas, it's much more square, so it doesn't seem like you're walking as far. Maybe you are, it just doesn't feel like it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I am looking forward to getting back to Vegas, although I had a great time in New Orleans. But, yeah, let's do it again. Let's do it again in July, fellas.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody have a Happy New Year, guys. Thanks for checking out another Cigar Chat. Really do appreciate your support. You can find us on CigarFederation.com, or you can download the Cigar Federation app to your smartphone. It's available everywhere, and if you don't have it, then we can't be friends. We'll catch up with you guys next week. I think we have M. Bombay on next week. I think Mel is going to join us.
You got it.
And we're going to talk about that. We've got Sharing Our Pairings tomorrow. That'll be my first cigar in like 3 weeks. And we're smoking Roma Craft. Like, I'm just going to jump right out the box.
50th episode, man. 50th episode.
That's our 50th. They're just going to jump right in with the Neanderthal, and
Oh,
I
God.
might not make it. No, I'm not smoking Neanderthal. I'm still scared of that cigar.
Cask strength whiskey and super full bodied cigars. Rob's gonna die.
No, I'm excited, man. My evening is once the show starts, I'm doing nothing after that because I mean we're gonna be, as the Canadians say, we're gonna get nice and gooned. So so check us out tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern as well. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. Everybody have a happy New Year, and we'll catch you in 2016.
All right.
Ciao.